And good morning, everybody. It's another Monday morning, a Monday morning chat about leadership. Hi, I'm Walter. I'm the Dutch mentor. Today, I'm joined by David, who actually geographically, we are pretty close together. We grew up in the Rockland County area. Although we have never met in person, we have met, of course, in our new digital world. And in our conversation before this, that led up to this podcast and this invite, he has an interesting story to tell. And I always look for people to come to and join to provide us with a different point of view. To be an HR professional, to be a highly effective HR professional, I'm of the clear opinion you should not just go to school and get your bachelor's and your master's degree and be plopped into an HR generalist position and work up the chain. I think those who are in the HR senior level roles who've experienced life are in a much better position to understand the 360 around them. And I think Dave is an example of that. So, David, welcome to our podcast. And I look forward to hearing more about your story and some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis and some of the hobbies that you have, we've already spoken about as well. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Yes, you did bring up the point that we reside and we've grown up relatively close, which was kind of linked us together, which was great and started the conversation. But to your point, we've never met in person, and this is a great opportunity to dive deeper into dialogue. So, I've had a very interesting non-traditional journey to get to the seat that I'm at. I currently hold a position as a senior vice president of people and culture for a PEO. The PEO world, what we do is we partner with small to medium-sized businesses, and we ultimately are their HR back office. So for folks that are not familiar, it truly is that HR outsourcing component. I've been in this industry, not this company, but this industry for 18 years. It's a very, very long time to work within this industry. What's been really cool about this industry, though, is I work with every facet of business. If you're a marketing agency, I work with you. If you're a finance company, I work with you, banking, everything across the board. Within the first couple of years of what I do, it would probably have taken me 20 to 25 years of changing job after job after job just to get that insight into business. So that's what I've enjoyed about the PEO environment. But there's a big story getting up to this particular point as to the seat that I'm in today. When I first started my career, ironically, I was not the best of students. And it wasn't because of intelligence, it was because of lack of desire to really even participate in school. So when I graduated from high school, I was initially intending to go off into the military. And as I was having conversations with a business that I was working at, small retail pharmacy, they had said, "Hey, do you want to stay on as a manager?" And I said, 18 years old, I have nothing to lose. This isn't really going to affect. If the military is not going anywhere, I can always go into that sector. So while I was working there, I was understanding general business. I was understanding personnel impact, and we had conversation about expanding the business more into toys and jewelry and everything that is completely foreign to me. Never touched that part of the business, but it was so intriguing because it was something new. So as the year went by, my boss at the time had asked me if I wanted to come on as a business partner, and I said, "Sure. What do I have to lose other than a couple of dollars?" So made the investment there. I did that for about 5 or 6 years. And when it came down to further expansion, I had certain ideas that I wanted to do. My business partner had certain ideas, but they never really matched up, and that was okay. So that was really the end of the road there. But before that, I went back to school, got my degree, got my undergrad degree. When I left the organization, when I left that particular business, that's when I doubled down and said, okay, I really need to understand all the nuances and intricacies of human resources, because I had met a professor that I was really between going into the marketing world or into the human resource world. And it was good that I went to the HR world, because areas that I enjoy are compliance and learning and development and all those components. When you talk about compliance and labor law, that is the complete opposite of the marketing world. So
Yeah.
I'm better suited in this world. So I went down that pathway. Then I worked for a very, very large organization where I was more of that executive leader, overseeing retail environment. That was a very hard role. The amount of hours, sometimes you're working overnights, sometimes you're working on very significant employee relations issues. There was violence that was occurring. It was a make or break type of role. I was contacted by a very large payroll company. That payroll company said, "Okay, great. I participated with them. I went into their PEO division, and that's really where I started to get, knee deep within this industry. Worked for them for about 6 or 7 years, and then I came over to this company, and I've been part of this company. So I used to lead the HR business partners, HR managers that partner with our clients. And then I shifted about 4 or 5 years ago internally. We started growing so much that we had to say, we have to make sure we get it right in order for our employees to service our clients. And we've done a phenomenal job. We've been recognized, whether it's through Forbes, Newsweek, Cranes, Stevie Awards, everything across that board, because we've built such a solid culture based off of the folks that are working here. And you'll hear me talk about the we's and not the I's, because I firmly believe this is a team effort. I might initiate the project, but at the end of the day, I'm not the one bringing it into the goal. I'm not the one scoring it there. And I like to make sure that people are aware that it's not just a one-person drive. It is the entirety of the organization, top down, bottom up, like an Oreo cookie, all sandwiches, all the way out. I do love my Oreos, though.
So really good, and we're going to go into that in a little bit more in a second, because that's really kind of like the meat and potatoes. But I just want to ask one quick question, because a lot of people are very hesitant to making a choice, making a transition. Right? They are risk adverse. I have a paycheck. Early on, you're still living pay to paycheck. It's very difficult. How do I make this decision? How did you approach making a decision to leave something to go somewhere else, and feel a level of security around that? There's a risk benefit in everything that we do, but what is the mindset behind it to take these risks and to just go for it?
So what's interesting is I always bring things back to a juvenilistic nature. I always make a chart, the pros and cons. What's the risk versus reward? I enjoy risk. I do, but I also have to measure and weigh out what the potential challenges are going to be. The other part of it too is not only from a business standpoint is where I'm educated and what I have most of my experience in. I grew up in a family where parents are extraordinarily supportive of whatever you want to do. Their mindset was always, as long as you're driving towards a career and not just a job, we got you. And it doesn't matter what that is. They never said, you have to be a business person, you have to be a lawyer, you have to be an architect. They were never of that. They just fully supported you. And I do reflect that in my kids today, because it was one of those core values that is, again, absolutely phenomenal. But I also grew up in a family where my father had a home improvement company. So guess what? If none of this worked, swinging a hammer, putting in windows, doors, and that stuff I do enjoy. When we start to talk a little bit about hobbies, you'll hear a little bit more about that. But along this journey, I also opened up a small, independent, owned and operated home improvement aspect to my life to support the financial obligations that I had. Because, truth be told, when I had left the one business and did not have a job lined up, I had a mortgage to pay. Yeah. And who's not forgiving? Mortgaging companies. They don't care what your story is. At the end of the day, you still have to make your payments. So that was a massive leap forward. But I've always been that person that is, I'm not risk adverse. I'm not risk hesitant, but I enjoy that little bit of oomph, because anybody that you talk to in their lives, if you don't take that risk, I always say people that are leaving and moving to other areas, we're not trees. If you don't enjoy where you are, pick up and go. We are not rooted down. And it's very similar to the business world. Is if you're not satisfied or you're not being developed, it might be that opportunity to move on. And it might be that opportunity to explore other areas of business or other areas of interest that do make you energized and invigorate. I still have about 20 more years left on this work road to go. So I figure I'm going to continue down this road as hard as I can for 10 years and then gray out. I'm bold, but I'll still gray out over the next 10 years, you know?
Good
So
for you. I can certainly relate to that, as we have discussed it, is that I have five great kids, and each one of them, I said, listen, you go find whatever it is that you want to do, right? And my obligation is to help support you to your bachelor's degree. What you do after that is entirely up to you. But I know that the combination of hard work, open-mindedness, and continuously learning, and a commitment to professionalism, right, and coming in with a great attitude will get you wherever you need to go. So let's talk a little bit about culture, right? So clearly we know that the talent, uh, few people are born with natural born talent and refined skills, knowledge, and abilities. Especially in your world where you're taking over organizations, where you come in and provide HR services. A lot of people want to say, well, there's money, money, money. No, it's really not. It's reward, recognition, appreciation, and development is really the greatest intrinsic needs of anybody who has some level of intensity to wanting to grow as a professional in life. So the culture of an organization is essential that it needs to be supported from top down, bottom up, and left to right in order to be able to help form, shape the next generation. So what is your philosophy as you look at your workforce, both internally and, of course, the companies you take over, to make sure that the word development is taken serious? You obviously, trust equals engagement equals productivity. Productivity gives you valuation. Valuation gives shareholders return on investment.
Yep. So very good question. And, I think at the end of the day, one of the things that I really try to drive through the organizations to my leaders is that you have to train the next generation to take your seat. And managers are very, very uncomfortable about that part of it, because the
Hmm.
reality is you cannot move up or move out if you cannot replace your role. And the folks that work for me, they know I'm an open book. I give them all the keys to the castle so they can understand it. I hire people that are more intelligent than I am because I know what my wins are and I know what my opportunities are. And I have to fill that void so we are successful as a team. I always look at things in a team environment. When folks start to go down the I roles, that's where it's like, okay, we're managing this process, we're managing everything in its entirety. You have to focus more on the folks that are participating as well. So what it does is it builds a community. I always like to say community, not a family, because families can be dysfunctional. So,
Hmm.
communities, you have a lot of participating citizens that are working through it. So, as we build our community, that's what drives the culture. At the end of the day, I can say this is our culture over and over and over again. It's not going to go anywhere. But if we start to embed it in the DNA of the folks that we are working with, and you are a supportive manager and supportive leader, and at the end of the day, you really own what you're saying, that's when it starts to build that momentum. Um, when I look at our business in general, or even when I look at the folks here, learning and development, or just development in nature, is one of those areas where we have to continuously develop. One of the biggest areas, you hear this all the time, is AI. AI is going to take my job. Nope. I think it was Gary Vee just recently said AI is not going to take your job. People who understand and embrace AI are going to take your job. And the reality is that's
Hmm.
been the way, the course of business for the last 20, 30 years, whatever that topical situation is. So one of the things that I always embrace with my staff is I give them time to focus on those areas, whether it's credits for their certification, I wholly support them there. Whether it's working with SHRM, I wholly support them there. When we're talking about, we're still a medium-sized business. So if you want to learn about different aspects of business, you want to get out of HR and client management, and you want to focus on benefits, you've got a benefits department you can pair with and partner with. You cannot do that in the larger organizations. So it really starts to drive those, individual development plans. I utilize a system internally where folks are checking in on a weekly basis to gauge their pulse. So I truly have the ability, no matter where I am in the world, to take a look and say, okay, business is good. When I talk about business, it's more the culture
Hmm.
and the engagement. Business is good, or it's dipping down. And if I don't have the definition as to why it's dipping down, could be cyclical. I always use the analogy of a CPA. Ask a CPA how satisfied they are with their job in February. You know the answer you're going to get. You ask them in May, they're happy because hopefully they're taking a vacation.
Yeah.
Um, But, at the end of the day, I can really gauge what that looks like. But if I start to see it falter, now it's my obligation to make sure that there's no issues at a managerial level, or that there's nothing else going on with that particular employee. I think at the end of the day, it's very important to hear your employees. It's very important to listen to them as well. And it's also very important to be open and direct. If there's certain things that you can't do as a business, it's okay. But define the reasons why. If you lead the employee on, it starts to build that animosity, and you're never going to get down that road. But when we look at development, it's always taking a look at the organization. What does the succession plan look like? I do talent reviews throughout the course of the year, and I build out contingency planning, because the reality is employees move on. They might develop here and they've hit their ceiling here, and that's okay, because the next step is this, but business has to continue forward. So what is that contingency plan that really falls into play?
Excellent. It's so good to hear that some people get it, right? There's a very scary statistic out that 95% of executive leaders know that development is a key to the success of the growth of the company. Sadly, only 5% of those take meaningful action. It becomes a checkbox. Yes, we put on a lecture. We set out a webinar. We send people to conferences. Yes, I buy their subscriptions. But none of that really matters, right? And I always say is that a conference and a webinar are great social events. By Monday morning, they have forgotten everything that was said on that day. It is the consistency, right? And that's really why my work comes in when I work with as a mentor with people. I believe in having that consistent interaction for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, to work alongside with them and be that accountability buddy to help and shape their understanding as they enter into an organization, or if they start to grow into the organization. Love the fact that you're doing the Box 9 talent review. Again, I've been trying to introduce that to lots of people. There's so much value to that. Listen, if you know who your Box 1, 2, and 3 is, that the high performer, high talent, and you don't work with them, well, expect them to leave, right? But if you know who they are and you can feed them, you can coach and mentor them, they can work on a real succession plan. But what about that 8 and 9s, right? Those people who are on the cusp of being managed out. Why not see if we can manage them up before we manage them out? How often do we hang on to bad employees because it's easier to not have the conversation than it is to have the conversation? And so it's really, really good to see that. So I wanted you to flip your head for a second. And I want you to look at it from a perspective of an employee that works for you, or that wants to come to work for you, or works in one organization. What is it that they should do for themselves to be in the best position to become an emerging leader and to get onto that journey of and accelerating their professional development and career?
That's a great question. Ask questions. I think the guidance I would provide is to ask the questions. And at the end of the day, nobody owns your career but yourself. So, be very inquisitive. If there are leaders that you want to mirror and they're not within your subject area, that's okay. Talk to them. Find a mentor. Find somebody, whether it's internally in the organization, we support mentor programs and everything to that degree, but also find a mentor externally. Early in my career, I was introduced to a mentor that it's not even the same space as I am. He's in the technology space, worked for some very, very large organizations. And that's probably part of the reason why I do take a lot of the risks that I do. And they're more calculated risks that I'm moving forward with. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, it's a juvenilistic nature. I literally make a list of, does this make sense? Does this not make sense? What are the pros and cons? And then really evaluate it from there. And I am a spreadsheet dork through and through. My kids make fun of me. Girlfriend makes fun of everybody across the board. They're like, your life is based in a spreadsheet. And it truly is. But really, from an employee standpoint, you own your career. If you are super intrigued with AI, nowadays, you can go on to these learning channels and understand it from there. There are so many publications about it there. But internally here, go talk to our CIO. Go talk to a member of the technology group to really bend their ear and look at what their guidance is. My own personal philosophy is people love to talk about what they do because we do it 8 to 10 hours a day. They love to kind of unveil that part of it. I think my give back to any organization or to any individual is to show them how I got to where I am, because it's non-traditional. And my pathway might be something different to another person. And that's okay. If they take one tidbit of information and that helps define what their role is, great. Because I always look at it this way. At some point in time, I'm going to be reporting to them. So I treat them that way. I treat them with empathy. I treat them with support. But any employee that truly wants to identify what the next stage in their career is, be vocal, ask the questions. And if they're not comfortable vocalizing it, put it in an email or run it through one of the AI systems to make sure it covers everything. Maybe put it into a grammar program to make sure you throw a comma in there appropriately. And go after those mentors because they will guide you properly. At the end of the day, there's nothing at stake for them to do it. And they might be entirely too busy to focus in and say, oh, this person has an interest over here, but they forget to engage with them. So that's where, again, I think the biggest part is understanding that you own your career, and it's part of the obligation of that person that you approach to really help get you to that next step and that next phase.
Excellent. I always say this to everybody, is that no star athlete goes to the Olympics alone.
That's
Right?
right.
Along the way, they've had phenomenal coaches, mentors, trainers, and all kinds of other people around them. If you want to be that star athlete in your particular industry, I don't care where it is, then seek out the help, right? It can be professional help by hiring somebody, it can be internally. And as a personal, as a leader, I always tell the leaders, you need to make it a personal function of really two things. A, if you leave the organization and the place falls apart, you have done a horrible job.
Right.
So succession planning, talent management, development needs to be one of your core staples of things that you do on a day-to-day basis, right? So I love the individual development plan. Like if I were in charge, I would do away with the annual performance management plans that they have. They all, listen, we take them out, we come up with these stupid rules, we apply them, and then we put them on the shelf. They sit there, collect dust for the next 12 months, and then we pretend that we looked at them, but we really don't. The individual development plan is owned by the employee.
Yes.
Right. So we reverse the roles, and it is up to the employee. If you want to accelerate, then you make it a point that you use a 70-20-10 approach. You set goals, you set, hold yourself to dreams and to key milestones, while you utilize your boss as a way of accountability or to communicate it, to help remove barriers or get access to the people in that 70% on the job learning. So really, really good to hear.
And
Listen, I think
to that point, one of the things that we do at the top of the year, we have our corporate OKRs, or objectives and key results.
Yep.
Then we drill it down to the departmental and how that impacts the corporate overall. There's an element too of the personal. So if you're looking to get your certification, or you're looking to learn how to bake, or whatever it is, this way it puts the pen to paper.
Yep.
And they have that ability to chase after it. And maybe their manager can also help them in that regard as well. So
Yep.
no, I wholly agree with that there's different components that folks need to focus in on for whether, again, OKRs or however they want to embrace that piece of it.
Yeah. Skin in the game is very, very healthy. So listen,
Yes.
you and I can probably talk another hour about this, but so to make sure that we stay somewhat within the time, let's flip real quick to the next one. Really, the exit question is that, what do you do for fun? What else? How do you entertain yourself and keep it? Because listen, we all know HR can be stressful,
Yes.
and that 9 to 5 job, but what else do you do for fun?
Yeah, so that's a long list as well.
Good.
But because with the limited time of after work, usually it's not every single day that this happens. First and foremost, I enjoy time with my family. I enjoy time. I have 2 little kids, my girlfriend and her son. Like, we have a very, very solid dynamic there. I am very, very active in terms of going to the gym. I go to the gym week over week, 3 to 5 times a week. And it's one of those where it's not from a physical standpoint, but from a mental standpoint. It gives me that break. So that is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And then there's the activities that surround that part of it. So whether it's a high rocks race or a Spartan race or marathon or 5K, 10K, I always go down those roads too. I enjoy boating, motorboats, as well as kayaking. Tie those two together, it's fantastic. Anything from sports. So I grew up playing soccer, grew up playing lacrosse. My son is into soccer, so we kick the ball around a little bit, play catch, everything to that degree. My daughter's into art and theater, so I take an interest in that area as well and just focus on those components. Going out to dinner, I don't think anybody can complain there. I'm not a big cook. I always consider myself a short order cook, where I get home, throw a steak on, potatoes for the kids, everything else to that degree. But yeah, I mean, I think if we really kind of focus on it from those standpoints, anything from a physical activity standpoint, and then also, I love to know information. So the best invention, I grew into technology. I did not grow up with technology because of my age. The best invention is my phone. Somebody mentioned something, it goes right into my notes, and then I go into the rabbit hole to research it. And if you look at all the tabs open on my phone, it's like connecting the dots. It's saying, whoa, he's interested here, 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 and here. The other day I was looking up gear ratios in my motor. And then, to the side of that is looking at learning plans. They have nothing to do with each other, but at the end of the day, it's all being that inquisitive and gathering all this information. I would say the end of it, that is a true enjoyment that I have. It's just knowledge-based learning.
Listen, the key is being inquisitive, right? Is asking the right questions, be open-minded, go out. And again, we in our pre-conversation, you and I are very much alike in very, very, many aspects. I'll skip the boating, but I'll go flying helicopters and airplanes.
There you go.
We can fix houses and do all kinds of things together. And most importantly, be very proud of our family.
Oh, yes.
David, thank you very much for joining me today. It was a real pleasure. I think that we maybe should meet in the future again and talk about other topics, or maybe even our Airbnb. But I think we're out of time for that today. I would love to welcome you back sometime and continue your conversation. I really appreciate you and wish you much success and great summer. And we'll talk soon again.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And welcome back anytime.
Okay. Thank you, sir.